Put your seatbelts on and get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today is Monday, July 21st. Hopefully everybody's having a good day so far today. This is episode 573 of the In the Trenches with Gang Green podcast. I thank you, as always, for joining me. For those tuning in on YouTube, make sure to please like and subscribe. Of course, appreciate all of those tuning in on all the different audio podcast platforms. And today we have our first installment of the 2025 New York Jets player previews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Throughout the entirety of training camp, we will have two players each of those days, one on offense, one on defense, giving you their profile projection for the 2025 season. And today, I cannot wait to get started. Training camp is here. Football is back. Let's go, baby. And today, we're going to start off our annual player preview series with Alijah Vera-Tucker on the offensive side of the football, and we'll take a look at Michael Carter II on the defensive side of the football. So we'll kick things off here on the offensive side, up in the trenches with the New York Jets right guard AVT, entering his fifth season with the team, 26 years old. Of course, 2021 first-round draft pick, 14th overall out of USC, coming in 6'5", 308 pounds. Will play this season under the fifth-year option, and it'll be interesting to see, of course, what happens over the next couple of months here into the regular season, how AVT plays, and then eventually the contract decision that the New York Jets will be tasked with making with both AVT and John Simpson, their two-star guards here, that'll hit the open market next year. There will definitely be some tough decisions for the New York Jets to make with AVT. But last year was a really positive year for AVT, and entering this season, I think you've got to have a really positive outlook on Alijah Vera-Tucker, and not just AVT, but the offensive line as a whole should be one of the strengths of this New York Jets team, is a huge factor in this Jets offensive success in terms of this run-first offense that we all expect them to have. But you look at AVT's career so far, it's been interesting, and it's been difficult at times, right? He comes in 2021, puts together a productive first season, 16 games started, 1,027 snaps at left guard, played one position, played 16 games, was healthy, all that good stuff. And in over 2022 and 2023, he dealt with some injuries. 2022, he only played 7 games, tore his triceps against the Denver Broncos on the road. In those 7 games, he saw snaps at left tackle, 70, saw 232 snaps at right guard, and 130 snaps at right tackle. And you go into 2023 hoping AVT can stay healthy again, and he goes out there and he only plays 5 games. Achilles injury, also against the Broncos, also on the road. In that season, 101 snaps at right guard, 149 snaps at right tackle. And early on in AVT's career, right, year 1 was smooth. Year 2, year 3, started to bounce around the offensive line, was kind of a Swiss Army knife, played really well at all those different positions, was dealing with those injuries. The tricep injury and the Achilles, 2 major injuries, results in just 12 games in 2 years. And last year, you had a lot of questions about AVT. And the biggest question was his health. That was the biggest question. Can he go out there and put together a healthy season? Can he go out there and not just be healthy, but be productive and be one of a key piece for this offensive line and stick at right guard and play the whole season out at right guard? And that's exactly what he did. 15 games last year was a nice bounce back, 916 snaps, all saw at right guard. And it's crazy to think that AVT, right, has played all four of the 5 positions on the offensive line except center. that's kind of been how things have gone throughout his first 4 years in the league, playing multiple different spots. But, we got earlier this offseason, AVT sticking in that right guard, 2 tackles, of course, in Olu and Membu. Simpson on the other side at guard, and you got Tippmann at center. And I believe that was the right decision to keep him at right guard. And you saw a lot of really good things out of AVT last year. And I think you look at AVT's overall projection for this season, and you've got to be very optimistic. Not just AVT, like I mentioned right in the open, but really this Jets offensive line as a whole. And what was so positive about AVT last year is not just that he played every game, but he played every game and played at such a high level. And he was healthy, right? Those are the biggest things. We always knew the talent, the skill, all that was there. It's just staying healthy, being on the field, and he was out there for 15 of the 17 games. You look at the numbers last year for AVT, really, really productive numbers. 916 snaps, 609 pass blocking, 297 run blocking. He had a 77.7 overall grade, which was a career high and was 15th among all guards in the NFL. 74.5 pass block grade was a career high. That was 19th among guards. And he had a 76.3 run block grade, which was 12th in the NFL among all guards, which is super, super impressive stuff. On top of that, 2.75% pressure rate allowed was 5th among guards, and a 98.3 pass block efficiency, which was 9th among guards. AVT and John Simpson were the only guard duo in the NFL to finish top 10. Both finished top 10 in pass block efficiency. And that's why I was always a big advocate for keeping AVT at right guard going into this offseason. Because if you remember early parts of this offseason, there was question about him maybe moving to right tackle and then finding a guard to slot in as opposed to drafting a right tackle. There was some of that question. Of course, Muji at the owners' meetings made that clear that wasn't going to be the case, and they were going to stick with AVT at right guard, and that's the right decision, just considering how good him and John Simpson were last year. And I just think it's smart to keep him at one position, and he's coming off a year where he had a ton of success there. And I think one of the biggest things with AVT that was impressive and makes you feel really confident was the uptick in pass blocking success for him, right? AVT, since entering the league, his run blocking has always been top of the line. That's always been a really big strength of his run blocking ability. But the pass blocking took a little bit of time. He had some of those growing pains year 1, year 2, even year 3, where he was playing multiple positions at an all-pro level. If he would have stayed healthy, there's a real chance he could have been an all-pro. But pass blocking was always a weakness of his. Last year, right? 98.3 pass block efficiency, top 10 among guards, and his 74.5 pass block grade was top 20 among all guards to play a snap last year, and it was also a career high. So this was a guy last season that not only continued to produce as a run blocker, not only stayed healthy, but also did really his best job from a pass blocking perspective in 2024. And I think that projects well in 2025. This is going to be a run-first offense. AVT, from a run blocking perspective, that's the strength of his game. And the pass blocking as well, coming along in year number 4, entering year number 5, is something else that I think is a key note to throw into this conversation as a whole. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with AVT, really, after this year. What the future is, what do the New York Jets decide to do between him and John Simpson? That's a big question, and we'll see. We'll find out eventually next offseason, most likely here. Maybe something gets done during the year, but the biggest thing for AVT entering this year continued to be that solid, consistent run blocker. Pass blocking came along last year, continue to produce at that as well, and be a key cog in this team running the football, be a big cog in this team's identity, winning in the trenches. All 5 of these guys are going to be important. And I want to read some other numbers for you here in this last part. You look at 2022, 2023, just some of the numbers. This is taking from a couple years ago, but it is really interesting to note some of these. Those 2 seasons, Breece Hall's yards per carry when AVT was on the field was 6.08 yards. When he was off was 3.97. And I know the Jets had a ton of struggles last year, and those numbers are going off of a couple years ago, so they're a little bit skewed. But last year, this was a team that completely got away from running the football. They were a much heavier pass first. They were 31st in rushing, and a lot of that just had to do schematically. This year, right, Angstrand coming in, it's going to be a run-first identity. AVT fits that billing. So I expect another impressive year from AVT. He's one of the key pieces on this offensive line. The biggest thing's always been health. And unfortunately, those 2 injuries, right, they were 2 freak injuries. It's not like it's nagging hamstrings or ankle issues. It's a torn tricep and a torn Achilles. That's just 2 unfortunate freak injuries that happen. And last year, he went out and played 15 to 17. If he can do that again this year and play at that level, this is going to be an offensive line, going to be a position that's a strength for the New York Jets. He was one of the lone bright spots last year for what was a forgettable 2024 campaign. So that's Alijah Vera-Tucker here entering this 2025 season. Now moving on to the defensive side of the football, we go to the secondary with Michael Carter II, entering year number 5, similar to AVT. Same draft class here, 26 years old for Michael Carter, 5'10", 184 pounds out of Duke. 5th round pick, of course, 154th overall. Came in as a safety in college, transferred to cornerback, and got better and better. Earned himself a contract last year, 3-year, $30.75 million deal. That's $10.25 million per year with $19 million in guaranteed. He became the highest paid nickel in the NFL at that time, right before the season. And it was a deal we all were hoping for, a deal we expected, and it came right before the season. It was a smart move. At the time, it looked good. Unfortunately for Carter, though, last year was an extremely bumpy season. He dealt with the ankle in training camp and had a great campaign in 2023, as we all know. By far the best nickel in the NFL. Huge season. Has an ankle that he was dealing with during training camp. And then, more importantly, as the season goes on, early on, he suffers a back injury, herniated disc in his back, and it really slowed him down. In and out of the lineup, even when he was out there, you could tell not the same player, and he wasn't out there very much. And you look at Michael Carter going into the season, you kind of view him in a totally different light. He's in a totally different situation than where he was last year. It's kind of the prime example of life comes at you fast in the NFL. You know, this time last year, you get the extension, you become the highest paid nickel cornerback in the NFL. You're coming off of a career year in 2023, where I'll read you some of his numbers here in a second. He was far and away the best nickel in the NFL, best slot in the NFL, right? Goes out there, dominates, enters last season with the brand new contract, long-term deal locked up. Fast forward now a year later, injury-prone season. When he was out there, he didn't play well at all, clearly hindered by the injury. He actually talked about it during OTAs, during one of his press conferences. It took him months to fully recover from the back injury. It wasn't something like the season ended and he recovered. It took him months. It was a big injury. It really hindered him, which was clear, of course, with his play. But now you fast forward to this year, and you're looking at Michael Carter. This is a little bit of a make or break year, and that's not always normal for a guy who just became the highest paid player at his position a year ago. But that's where he's at. This is a regime that did not give him this contract, and there's a potential out in this contract after this season. So there's a real chance here that if Michael Carter, very quickly, if Michael Carter doesn't have a good year this year or has another season where he's dealing with injuries, the Jets can get out of his contract because this regime has no loyalty to him. They didn't draft him, and they were not the one that handed out the extensions. They can get out of this contract after this year. So very quickly here, 2025 kind of becomes a sneaky make or break year for Michael Carter. I don't think many fans are talking about it, and that's kind of why I wanted to get into his player preview here kind of early on in this series, because it's really something to watch for this year. just the way he plays. Can he have a bounce back season? Can he stay healthy? All that stuff. You look at his numbers last year, really struggled. 13 games, just 285 snaps, right? In and out of the lineup. Even when he was active, he was not in many of these games very long. Just 24 tackles, only one pass defended. He had a 50.7 Pro Football Focus grade, which was a career low. He had just a 47.9 coverage grade, which was also a career low. And you compare that to what he did in 2023, it's night and day difference. 2023, 671 snaps, 15 games played. He had 50 tackles, 9 passes defended, which was tied for a career high. And here are some other numbers, and some numbers that are really impressive. And ultimately what got him the massive contract, right? Took a big step in year 3. You're like, okay, successfully turned safety to corner, and now it's time to really take off. You get the extension. Some of these other numbers, 83.3 coverage grade, was 10th among all corners, first among slot corners. Also a career high at an 80.4 overall grade, career high 18th among all cornerbacks. 195 yards allowed, first among slot corners. 25 receptions allowed, first among slot corners. 0.54 yards per snap, first among slot corners. 14.4 snaps per reception, first. 1 penalty. He was only penalized once in 2023. Also first. Clearly the best slot corner in the NFL in 2023. And you compare those to the 2024 season, dealt with the injuries and suffered from it and took a massive, massive step back. And that's where you find him now, sneaky make or break year for him, with no loyalty to this regime, no tie to this regime. It was the previous regime that gave him the extension, of course, and ultimately drafted and developed him. I'll say this, though, from a 2025 projection standpoint, if Michael Carter can stay healthy, I don't see any real reason why he shouldn't get back to the player he was in 2023. Is he going to be far and away the best slot cornerback in the NFL again? Maybe not. But last year, to me, is more the outlier than 2023 is, and it's just because of the injury. You can't tell me if he wasn't hurt last year, he would put up those numbers. There's just no way. I don't think 2023 was some huge year followed up by a bad year, and that's last year is more of who he is. No. He dealt with an injury. He was barely on the field. Clearly hindered him. It took him months to recover after the season. Really, just until OTAs, until he started to finally feel healthy. And I also think something working in Michael Carter's favor is the scheme that he's entering into here. This scheme actually fits Michael Carter more than previous in some aspects. Right? Glenn is heavy man coverage type of guy, right? Likes to press man, all that. Likes to have physicality. Man coverage is his thing. You look at what Michael Carter did in man coverage in 2023, really productive year for him. In man coverage, quarterbacks went 10 of 28. That's a 35.7 completion percentage. For 86 yards, just 1 touchdown. 56.5 passer rating. He had a 75% coverage success rate and just 0.7 yards per coverage snap. Very good against man coverage in 2023. Actually saw a jump from where he was in 2022, which is as to be expected because 2023 was a career year. So healthy, schematically, if this is a defense that should run more man coverage, Michael Carter's a guy that's going to benefit from that because he does well in man coverage. And I mentioned this a couple of times. There's a couple players on this team that I think can benefit the most from a new coaching staff. Michael Carter is on that hierarchy of guys that I think could benefit most from Aaron Glenn, this new defensive staff, and this new scheme, and that's the man coverage. So he's healthy. No reason he should be back to being the player closer to what he was in 2023. I still have a high expectation for Michael Carter. I still believe he can bounce back. I do. Health's the biggest factor. Hopefully the back injury is not something that pops up, not something that starts to linger again. And if that's the case in this defense, no reason why he can't get back to closer to the player he was in 2023. And you look at this secondary, he's a guy that's going to need to step up, Michael Carter. really. Because outside of Sauce and Michael Carter, you look at the rest of the secondary and you say, Brandon Stevens, we don't really know. We'll get into him player preview. Not somebody that was crazy liked as a free agent signing. Obviously, you have AZ Thomas, rookie though, right away probably won't start. I could see him winning out the job later on. We'll get into all that here as the episodes go on. But the point being, Michael Carter returning in 2023 form would be a massive bonus for this New York Jets team. So that's a player preview. First episode in the books. Appreciate the support. Love doing these. Episode number 1. Again, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You know the drill if you've been watching. Every single year we do these. Episode 1 down. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on Alijah Vera-Tucker entering the 2025 season and your thoughts on Michael Carter II entering 2025 season? Pivotal years for both of these players. All right, AVT under the 5th-year option, last year under contract. What's his future look like? And for Michael Carter, even though he got the extension last year, potential out after this season, coming off a difficult 2024 campaign. Can he bounce back here in 2025? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Appreciate your support as always. A lot more content coming your way. And until next time, JETS. Jets.